Hello and welcome to week 4 of the Overcope Podcast. I'm your host, Motor, an Overwatch content creator, and currently stuck in a hotel room. So this is as scuffed as you're ever going to get it. I'm recording on a phone. Let's go. And I'm joined today by Mick.
Sideshow angle. He's actually just in the shed at his home, hiding. Hello, I'm Mick. I am joined with Motor today for the Overcope Podcast as always. And yeah, not much to say. Today's going to be a little bit more scuffed. I'm the editor for today, and audio quality is down, video quality is everything's down, everything's in shambles, but we have news to cover, so we are going to do our darndest best to cover the news anyway. All right.
Well, I'm gonna say news in like a little quotation marks there, because there is some maybe juicy news, but it's not been heaped on us. You know, they haven't brought the dump truck out and just dropped everything on us. Is what I'll say.
The bit of information we do have is crazy though. It's a topic and a half.
Yeah, I mean, let's stop beating around the bush. Support role passive for every role
in season 9
would be. Pardon?
In season 9, yeah. In season 9.
In season 9. In season 9 could be completely game changing. They did say, this is the caveat that I have with it, is they say a toned down version. Obviously it was going to be toned down. It was always going to be toned down. The question that I have is about how much weaker are we making it? Because everybody was saying this could make, you know, Sombra OP, or this could make Tracer was the big one, obviously. Tracer OP, or, you know, Genji's going to have a bit of a better chance. The flankers in general will be doing a lot better because of this change. But the question that you got to ask is how much stronger is how strong is it going to be in general? Like, because do you know how much heals per second the support is?
I believe it's 10 per second for the support passive, isn't it?
That's not much. How long does it take? It takes 3 seconds to kick in as well. So I don't think that's much. And if it's toned down, how toned down are we talking? Like, is it going to be payload levels of healing? Like when you're pushing payload, because that's also not that much.
I'm bringing up the I'm bringing up the stats here because I do believe I might be wrong about the numbers specifically.
He's getting the numbers.
Yeah, so 15 per second after not receiving damage for 2 seconds. So it's a 2-second activator with 15%. And 15 per second is actually quite a bit, because a lot of the time what will happen is you'll take like 50 damage on an Ana, putting you down to like 150. Getting into that area where like certain snipers and certain like abilities in the game will one-shot you, so then you have to wait and recover for a little bit, because obviously you don't want to waste your nade. It's usually the big one. So I think 15 per second is like this. I was gonna say the support passive is definitely not weak by any means. But yeah, tuned down version, you're absolutely right though. You're absolutely right. Tuned down version, what does that entail? What does it mean? Are we talking 5 HP per second? Then, but the issue is though, like it either doesn't matter, or it shifts the power of certain characters into like oblivion. Like, unironically, the funny thing is that the people this is going to hurt the most is probably the supports, right? Because now certain DPS just has an easier time taking, you know, their time with them.
Yeah. You can... This is the specific one that I was just thinking of then. Like, normally you save the Sombra TP to get out. Obviously, you're still getting out if you TP out. But you can just TP further into the backline now. Like, depending on how strong it is, obviously, you know, like you said, if it's 5 HP a second, then you're going to be chilling in the backline for way too long. But, you know, having DPS flankers being able to just sit in the backline for the entire game, basically, without having to go back, or, you know, not needing to scout for health packs and make massive rotations and stuff.
Mic off.
Back to support to get healed up.
Mic on.
I'm not entirely sure with the Sombra one. Like, I don't know that you would TP into the backline, because that still leaves you with no chance to cater in the backline.
No. I mean, after an engage, you could just TP further into the back. Like you could TP like closer to their spawn rather than having to TP back to your team or something.
Oh yeah, okay. I mean, that's not necessarily what you were doing at the current version of Sombra anyway, but I do see what you mean. Your uptime in the backline is gonna be increased.
Yeah.
For sure. Like, the thing is, like, if you can activate stealth and chill, you no longer, theoretically, you no longer have to play around health packs, which is...
Yeah.
But that's the thing, though. It's like, is it going to be 5 HP per second? Because then it's like, okay, well, it's faster to just grab a mega or like a mini around somewhere, like safety. You can throw yourself to, right? So it's going to be very curious for me to see, like, have they made this as a cosmetic change where it's like it's honestly just like a pat on the back, or is this like a tuned down version means like we are still going to make you heal like 15 seconds per 15 health per second, but the activation time is longer. In either case, it's going to, in my opinion, the changes is going to matter the most for people that wants to have a high uptime, but do not have a high uptime because they kind of have to trade sort of resources for that uptime. So like Tracer, Sombra, Genji, Wrecking Ball, because tanks are getting it as well.
Yeah.
It's a concerning change in my book, where it's either going to be very strong on certain heroes and it's going to shake the balance up of the game for no reason. Like it's not targeted in any way, shape, or form that makes sense. Or it's going to have like basically no impact. But like yeah, I don't really know. What are your takes on that?
I think like this was my immediate thought when I heard it, was like, it will be kind of nice for those. I've already talked to you about this. Those overtime fights where it's like you've just won a fight and you've got to push payload for miles and you're the only person left on payload. That'll be nice to get that extra little boost to healing. Not that that's such a specific thing. I just actually really like that idea. You know, sometimes in an overtime fight you have to stay on point and there's no support around, so you can't like go grab a health, you can't get healed and you can't go grab a health back. For those situations, I think that'll be a nice little quality of life change. And I mean, especially on push as well, because the robot doesn't give healing either.
Yeah, this is true.
I was just thinking then, it says toned down. I wonder how much they'll change it for tanks, because like, you know, getting 10 healing per second for a DPS is pretty good. It's not too bad. Like, you know, you're probably going to have 5 or 6 seconds of downtime anyway between engages, depending on how much damage you took. You know, for Sombra, you probably want your Translocator and your hack back, and Genji, you want your deflect and your dash before you engage again. But 10 HP a second for like a Wrecking Ball, where you want to have a high uptime, is a drop in the ocean of your health pool. So
yeah,
it does kind of make me wonder, like, do they how much does they reduce this for tanks?
Yeah, it will definitely be diminishing returns on tanks. Doomfist and Ball are the first like 2 things that comes to mind. Tanks that have a lot of mobility, and normally would like to sort of like get in and try to force cooldowns on the back line and threaten kills on certain like squishies. Get out, stabilize through either like, you know, your back line, most of the time playing around health packs and ranked at least. For a tank like that, it's going to be a question of it's going to be a question of like how much HP do you gain? Like because if you can play around a mega anyway, a mega is 200 healing, right?
Yeah.
But like if a mega doesn't take you up to full HP, I mean it's going to in any case probably increase your uptime slightly. Is it going to increase it enough to the point where we're talking extra valuable pressure? Maybe. I mean, no one plays Ball. Like, that's a different topic. I was gonna say Ball is also like Ball is garbage right now anyway, so it's probably not too bad for him to get at least something, right? Another thing is we have to consider heroes with shields, with shield HP.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, Symmetra and Saya, because they passively regen shield, and it's gonna be like the Zenyatta original sort of like role passive where people were like, Zenyatta regenning shield and support passive kicking in and healing at the same time is crazy fast.
Yeah.
Like, you go from like no HP to full HP so quickly.
How much is the shield? Is that 15 as well?
I don't know actually. Never really had to look into these numbers. I can check it real quick.
Yeah.
Let me see.
No,
Overwatch.
That was actually the exact one that I was just thinking was, how strong could Zarya be? Because, like, you know, if you sustain a lot of damage in an engage, but you build up a lot of charge and you manage to push up, take a corner, you know, normally you'd have to chill, and sometimes you have to back up because your supports can't get there. But if this roll passive kicks in after 2 seconds, and then you start getting your shield regen after 2 seconds, and I'm guessing it's probably only going to be somewhere between like 30 and 40 a second. Both
Shield,
combined, I mean.
the only article I can find, admittedly a fairly old one, says that shield regen is 20 per second after 3 seconds. So after 2 seconds, your 15 per second will kick in on Zenyatta, and then after 3 seconds, your 20 per second for the shield portion of your HP will kick in, for a total of 35 per second.
Yeah, 35 per second is good.
That's really good. Like, that's 2 seconds you have removed yourself from like a threshold of like a breakpoint, right? Like if you were just chipped down. If you're chipped down, it takes you like, you know, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, and you've removed the breakpoint essentially, because the 3 seconds you get your 15, you get your 20, and then the next second they both happen because they're both activated now, and then you get like a total of 60 within the 4 seconds, right? So
yeah,
quite a lot.
I don't know if I'm wrong about this. Is your support is the support roll passive immediately activated if you pick up a health pack? I feel like the regen is. I don't know why. I feel like if you receive any healing, the shield regen. No, am I wrong about saying that?
Yeah. Health packs counts as a cleanse for most things, but it's just a cleanse. It doesn't.
No, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought picking up a health pack started shield regen and the support roll passive. Okay.
No, it's just not taking damage based.
Mic off.
You need to stop doing that, brother. You need to stop turning that mic on and off.
Yeah, I know.
You're scaring me, man.
Don't worry about it. It's a perfectly normal sound to have.
No, it's not. Nobody's mic announces when it's on and off, except yours.
It's because I'm coughing.
No, okay. No. I think it could be quite strong for Sigma as well. I feel like Sig is probably the only hero where I actively am always like thinking about the shield regen.
So Sigma is actually a good shout as well. Because Sigma is already a master of trading like shield and grasp and own health resources. Shield, like Sigma is already really strong at trading, so that is and Saya as well, right? This is also good. Symmetra for that matter.
I don't know if this is just because of my level of Zarya understanding, but I've never really seen it as like as major, because with Sigma it's like it's so easy to do because you take a little bit of HP damage, you know, peeking in and out of cover, then you throw up a shield and allow that to deplete and then drop back into cover, and then by the time you've done that your HP's regened, and then you come back out, poke a little bit more than grasp than shield, and you know you can rotate that. So then if you get a passive where you can just, if it's like, because I assume it might be higher than 2 seconds as well, is the assumption that I'm thinking they might change those numbers.
Yeah, I am concerned though, because it's it's either going to just make certain characters a lot. Like especially Tracer right now. Like Tracer's so strong right now. Tracer doesn't
Yeah.
need another thing that ties into her playstyle to make her even better, right? So and if the numbers are whatever numbers, right? Like numbers that doesn't, like, let's say it's like 5 healing per second if you don't take damage for 10 seconds. Okay, well, I mean, you're out of the fight then anyway. Like,
Yeah.
you're out of the fight. Grab a mini at that point, right?
Yeah. I think it's going to be super, not case dependent. It's going to be super dependent on how strong the devs want to make it. I think 10 healing per second with 2 seconds activation would not be so crazy. I think that is a fair realm, or I think like maybe a 3 to 4 second activation for 15 healing a second is also a fair realm. Because we don't want to increase the uptime of these heroes, because like you said, it's not just making weak, like it's not like we're in a position where all of these heroes are quite weak right now. You know, we're picking Sigma, who is still very much in the conversation for a meta pick, and we're taking Tracer, who is 100% a meta pick. And you kind of look at it and you go, do we really need to then be adding, like, stacking more on top of these heroes who are these heroes, if anybody, are going to significantly benefit from it. And we also don't want to make it too miserable for the supports, even though we've been advocating that they're too strong for so long. It's not.
I mean, I've seen arguments for like, some people are saying like this like giving everyone the support passive is a way of relieving supports of having to heal everything, and I'm like, I was looking at that take and I was like, no, because that's not it though, because it's not, realistically speaking, it's not actually that difficult to take care of your team healing wise in Overwatch 2. That's not the difficult aspect of your role. Like if you're in the elo where you are struggling to keep your Reinhardt alive with Baptiste or something like that, like that then sorry to tell you, it's not the game's fault. It's not the game's fault, right? Like if you're in the elo where you are having a hard time pocketing your DPS with Mercy, or even caring for your Genji, your Tracer, your Sombra, your Echo with a character like Brigitte, right? If you're in that area, I'm sorry, it's because you are not good at the game, right? It's not because it's difficult to actually keep up in any way, shape, or form. There's so much healing compared to damage in Overwatch 2. Like, there's so much healing and so much utility to be had on your backline if you don't go Mercy Moira or something like that. Yeah, like it's like it's not that's not what it is. This passive isn't meant, or it will not be a tool for relieving supports. It is a tool to enable DPS and tanks to play whenever supports are not in the question. It is whenever like Tracer is setting up a play. It's whenever Sojourn is setting up a play. It's to allow Sojourn to play on an off angle completely alone, even without any kind of backline things that will, like if you're playing like a Bap Anna kind of deal that doesn't enable an off angle in any way, shape, or form. Then that character now has wiggle room to play an off angle like with Sojourn, right? That is what this will do for the most part. For tanks, I'm a little bit hesitant to be, because most of the time, like on tank, you want to have high uptime anyway, and that uptime comes through active healing from your backline as well. So I'm like, like I'm not seeing like a Junker Queen just sitting behind a corner, be like, hang on guys, I'm regenning. That's not gonna happen. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I had a really good point that I had in my mind, and then you just said that, and now all I'm thinking about is like Reinhardt or like Diva or something, like 650 HP on 10 heals per second, just waiting on a corner. Just like, hold on guys, I'll be there in a minute. Give me a second, I'm coming.
Yeah, that is not necessarily it. I
will just
hope
say-
I hope we keep the open mindset, because I think, and I even tweeted about this when it came out, I think this should have been an experimental patch. It's such an interesting idea. It's exactly the type of thing that I would even love to try it. Like, I want to try it.
Yeah.
What does this make? What does this do to the game? But just from a basic understanding, I understand that it's going to shuffle things around. And it's going to shuffle them around in a fairly random way. Not like we're shuffling these things around because that suits a meta change. But we're
Yeah.
shuffling them around because this is just what happens to be good and what happens to not be good with this change, right? And it's random.
Yeah.
It is a random change where it's like you have not understood the consequences of this change before you've decided to implement it. I don't think Blizzard has understood it.
Yeah. What I will say about that is the experimental mode in general, 100%, I think needs to come back, because I think it was a really, really clever idea. And I think our point right now is we don't know how this is going to change things, because depending on how strong, because they could either make a decision that, you know, that they could give it numbers that are going to make it absolutely meta defining, or they could make it a change that's kind of just, like I keep saying, you know, quality of life, those overtime holds where you have to just stand on point and cap, and or push payload or push robot, and then you hope that they are not respawning quick enough and they don't know that you're on low HP. You know, maybe it'll just slightly help those situations to feel a little bit less frustrating in a way.
Clutch a fight, yeah. If you clutch a fight where like
Yeah.
you're kind of the only one left alive, it's overtime, you're pushing payload. The enemy team has faster spawn or like closer spawn. Your team needs to come back. Before then, it's like whoever from the enemy team runs back. It's like you're kind of just coping on the point. Now, like you've
There's no way you're winning it.
But like, to be fair, like payload already did heal you 10 per second when you push it. I think that's a thing like a lot of people don't know, is that payload heals you on attack. So when you're pushing payload, not robots on push mode, but when you're pushing payloads, I've not given it a great amount of thought, but I think it's because it swaps back and forwards a lot. So it becomes like you'd like maybe sustain the fight on the robot a little bit too much in that regard. I don't really know. I mean, it's not like you really play around that 10 HP per second. That's the thing, right? It's like, because people will be like, oh, but payload heals? Then why doesn't attackers, like in professional Overwatch, why don't they just all stack on the payload and all get like 10 HP per second more? Like that's 50 HP per second in the team. Like that starts a feeling. And then that kind of ties into understanding that space holding and space creation will actually relieve you off of damage more than that 50 damage. Also, you're stacked up on a payload. Like you're gonna get angled out. Yeah. You're going to get angled out, right? But yeah, I don't know necessarily if. I don't know if it's necessarily if like we need that thing on the push bot. That is not for me to really have a big. I think the thing about like the healing off the payload, it is very much like it's a nice thing. It's a convenience thing. It is not like it's not a game changer per se. That you get 10 health per second while pushing payload.
I think your point about experimental was actually brilliant, though.
Yeah,
because
I think we need to do that.
Experimental would give them the opportunity to, because it, like we said, it's coming out in season 9, which means that they could run it in experimental for 2 weeks. I'm not sure how many weeks are left in the season at this point in time on the Wednesday. I think it's 3 weeks, something like that. It gives them 2 weeks to run experimental, see how they feel about it, and then they've got a week to decide on what changes they want to make. Maybe they go, we've got it absolutely perfect, we can see this from experimental, and we're going to keep it how it is because the way that we've set up works really well for the idea that they have in mind. Whatever idea they have in mind, whatever they're trying to accomplish with this, we don't know. but I'm sure they have something in mind for it. Or maybe they might go, this isn't working, and we can only discern from the data that we've collected that this is why, and we'll make changes based accordingly. Without experimental, they don't have as large of a sample size to do it, because I assume they will still have some playtesting. I should hope they're going to have a fair amount of playtesting, but not nearly as much as having a full community of players being able to go try it out. And I think there was also a certain level of excitement every time experimental came around. Not to go on a side rant here, but every time you saw that there was experimental patches, you'd always go try it out and be like, I wonder, with these suggested changes, how differently is the game going to be with these possible patches? And I think that was always a little bit of excitement, and I felt like they were always quite ambitious with the changes as well, because it was just experimental. You saw a lot of bigger level changes every time.
Like
I think
Diva Remake and Reinhardt Shatter Impact doing damage was experimental changes, which we now have tuned down versions of in the game. I mean, at the time, to be fair, when we got the Shatter buff on Reinhardt did not need a Shatter buff. But like in Overwatch 2, it translates fairly well into like, you have some potential to make a play with your own thing now.
Yeah.
So that has translated pretty well. I always thought the Diva Remake thing was a bit silly, but it's not like I'm not one of those people where I'm going to sit down here and say like that's outrageous. So I think experimental can have a place in Overwatch for that, especially because here's the big issue with experimental is like there's a correct way of doing experimental and there's a bad way of doing experimental. The correct way is to take some assumptions, which Blizzard are doing, put them up on the experimental, maybe even take many assumptions, right? Get a little creative with it, rough up the format of the game in terms of how stuff plays out, right? Now let the players play it and then hear what they say. Go on Twitter, see what are people saying. Go on your forums, see what are people saying. Go on Reddit, see what are people saying. What is the one thing that people consistently tell you is frustrating about this? Or maybe even consistently tell you it feels good about it, right? Because that way you can design your game around feel a lot more than anything, right? Because at the end of the day, balance aside, if your game doesn't feel good to play, it doesn't matter, right? It's irrelevant. Nobody's gonna want to play your game, right? So I think one of the issues in the past, perhaps, was that there was a period of time where you knew if something went up on the experimental, it went live. They just gave it a bit earlier, didn't really take the feedback, and then they put it up. I think it wasn't always, but it was a brief period of time where I was like, okay, well that's happening, like the Cassidy changes and the Widow changes.
Every single time. There was probably about 4 experimental patches that, probably more to be fair, experimental patches that went up, and it was like every single time, like just the exact patch that they put out there, they're just like, yeah, perfect, we'll just put that out. Pat on the back, guys, we did a very good job this time, and then they just post it.
So
I think
you definitely need to take feedback into consideration, but this is a perfect example of like Blizzard maybe has done some internal testing, and I'm gonna be real with you a lot. We know Blizzard's internal testing consists of gold players and a singular like master/GM player, right? Like I can guarantee you the internal testing that Blizzard does means nothing. It means nothing. It is the most irrelevant thing they could ever say. Whenever Blizzard has said we've done internal testing, what I want you to imagine is like a bunch of like 30 to 40-year-old dudes who are all hardstock gold, like, and crying about like the game in general. They maybe play it once or twice a week, because it's their job. Other than that, they mostly just do back-end stuff. Like these are the people, right? Quick play Andes. Them saying they've done internal testing is them saying they've booted up the game in the office just to make sure that it doesn't crash and burn. That's what it is. That's what their internal game testing is. Like there is no coherent thought about it. It's like It's like when the bronze people was like, I think every tank should have a shield. That's what the game devs are. They are that level of brain usually. So yeah. That being said, definitely don't make these kind of changes without some sort of consideration from the community. I would say I think it's a big thing. And I guess we'll have to see where this goes in the next season.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what we have to say about it. I think it might have been Jake or Dante made some really good. The thing is, I'm saying this, all right, take this with a grain of salt, because one of them said absolutely terrible things and the other said some really clever things. I can't remember which was which.
Jake's take was terrible. That's all I know.
Oh, it was Dante's take was good then. Okay, so go check out what Dante had to say about it, because Dante, I agreed with a lot of what he said, which was basically what we've just said. Anyway, that's enough about that. The passive. Me and Mick wanted to take a little bit of time out to actually talk to you guys about some common misconceptions throughout the game.
I mean, it's a bit of a leading question as well. Because misconceptions can be many things, but I thought it would be fun to talk about. Just to like talk about some this is supposed to be like food for thought, right? Talk about some things that a vast majority of the game base thinks, which I know from, like, the reason I know a lot of people think this is interacting with people I coach and teams I coach at lower elos, interacting with my friends who play the game, interacting with Twitter, interacting with Reddit, like all of these things, right? Is like throughout the years, a lot of consistent misconceptions have been portrayed, and I thought it would just be fun to like clear them up with a little bit of an explanation, talk about them, be like, why? Because I understand why misconceptions happen, right? I understand why it's easy to be led to believe that something is the way it should go. But then reality is a bit different, right? And we could maybe start with something you maybe see a lot, Motor. Like if you have something on your mind that you think is a big misconception.
Yeah, of course I do. I'm the tank guy, so let's talk about a tank misconception immediately. A misconception that you had to teach me was actually not factual information, which is tanks are not supposed to fight tanks. There's a little caveat in that, and there's a few caveats in that. Morga is a massive exception to this one. Morga is definitely a tank buster at this point in the game. In the future, if he becomes a poke hero, then I'm sorry for misleading you guys yet again. And obviously, if the enemy tank is absolutely giga feeding into your backline and it's just walked past you, kill him. But ignoring those two facts, your primary function as tank is not to stand in front of your backline and protect them from the enemy tank. Your primary function is to go help your team by stopping the enemy team's backline from getting value on your backline. Which, if you learn how to implement this knowledge into your gameplay as a tank player, just a little bit, then you will definitely see improvements and you will definitely climb. Obviously, for every hero, it works differently. For Winston, I'd say it's pretty simple as dive on the off anglers, or maybe go dive on the Ana and force cooldowns. You're not always going to get a kill, but forcing flankers or forcing the backline to give you attention and give you resources like sleep, Duzu, TP, nade, lamp, shift. If you can get those things out, then that is value for your team, and it is allowing your team to move more freely. So that is probably, for me, the biggest misconception in Overwatch. And even at a master's level, I'll be playing a game where I'm playing Junker Queen and the enemy tank is, Morga or something, where, again, Morga is a tank buster. As Junker Queen, I don't want to go near him. And I will have masters players screaming at me, you need to go fight the tank. It's not how it works, unfortunately. Not always, anyway. Obviously, it's a contextual game, so that's not always the case. Sometimes case by case judgment is required, but in general, your job as tank is not kill the enemy tank.
Yeah, true. I mean, I said it's like very high context as well, because if Morga is pushing a corner a little bit, looking to pressure you out, and you know he doesn't have E, for example, right? Without E, the matchup changes drastically, because now you can actually threaten him. He's no longer the immortal. So whenever gods can bleed, you know, there's a reason to go and make them bleed. But a lot of the time, if you're sinking all of your resources into the enemy tank, and they're doing the same, you're trading front lines, and the trade will honestly come down to your picks, and it's going to be like impossible to trade frontline with Reinhardt into a Morga, even with nerfed Morga. It's not ever going to happen. I think the misconception comes from like 6v6, where like you know, the Rhine duel in the front line with a team around it was like perhaps a bit more prevalent. But even back then, the win condition of Brawl was also to get to the backline. Obviously, it begs the big question, is like, but if I just go for the backline, am I not the tank who's overextended? And the answer to that question is yes, you are, if you do it the wrong way. You have to be smart about it, you have to clear angles, you have to fight for your space, you have to force cooldowns with your kit. Every single tank has a way to force cooldowns. Whether it's ball, fireball slam, reset, fireball slam, reset, potentially shooting a little bit on the squishies, right? If it's Doomfist, punch, slam out, punch, slam out, punch, slam out, stabilize with your block, right? Every single tank has a way to force cooldowns. Ram, Nemesis form, even just poke, like your shield up on an angle. You have very good poke currently, like insane poke. Your Vortex has a great opportunity to like really just like zone out an individual, pressure an individual, and then closing off the fight with that Nemesis form, right? And one of the things you'll always see is stuff like the enemy is playing Sire. Like you'll be playing a match with Dorado in a gold game. The enemy has a Sire, and you're playing Diva, and your team will be, oh my god, a brain dead Diva player into Sire. Oh, dumb, can't eat her beam, right? But here's the thing, Diva can fly. Sire cannot fly. Dorado is a map with a lot of high ground. If you are playing into the Sire, and even worse, using your micro missiles to feed her charge, you're playing the matchup completely wrong, right? As a Diva player, you're playing from high ground to high ground. You're leveraging these angles, high ground angles, right, to pressure out backline. And even like if Saya doesn't get any charge off of her bubbles, and you're sitting on high ground within your perfect, like, you know, effective range, and you're shooting her from a high ground, forcing her to look up on a high ground with her beam, and you can just like line aside the beam, Saya isn't doing a whole lot. So in that scenario, it's terrible. But if you're right. If you're sitting on payload on Dorado attack, and you're taking the fight in first point choke underneath the high ground into a Saya, you are dead every single time. Yes, you are. But you're not supposed to do that. so I think that is like one of the biggest misconceptions as well. It's the same thing as like playing like Saya into Orisa, because like Orisa is a spam tank. It's like, well, don't shoot her bubbles. I even, like, I had a scrim not so long ago, admittedly only a diamond scrim, where I played tank for my team, and my team was saying, oh, they have Saya, we should swap off of Orisa comp, and I said, no, wait until she pops her first bubble. When she pops her second bubble tracer, you flank the Saya hard, you start shooting her in the head, I'll spear her into the wall, and she's dead on repeat. And she literally couldn't play the game. They swapped off of Saya into Orisa by just pincering her with Saya and Orisa. No, sorry, Tracer and Orisa. Just pincering the Saya. We managed to make a Saya not even want to play into that by waiting out her first bubble. The thing is, Orisa can wait out Saya's first bubble, because Orisa, like, with Fortify and your Javelin Spin movement, right? And Saya with no energy and your backline, you're not dying. You're fine. You're fine. that zero energy, like zero charge Saya is not going to kill you. So just make sure she doesn't grab that charge, right? You're fine.
Yeah, and it's not exactly easy for Zarya to farm the charge against Orisa. I'd argue anyway. You know, unless you're going to try and javelin her when you know she's got 2 bubbles or something. It's not necessarily the. I'd say it's a pretty favourable matchup for Orisa, to be honest. Especially at this current state where Zarya's not that strong. So that is something that I dislike about the understanding of the game at the lower levels, which is the rock paper scissors, which again carries up all the way to like even the higher elos of Masters, where they're playing Reaper and you're playing Winston. So I think you should probably get off Winston now because Winston gets countered by Reaper. It's like, well, actually, no, he doesn't though, because I could go 1v1 this Reaper and go kill him as Winston. Like that doesn't. I'm not worried by the thought of them having a Reaper, because I know that it's about skill expression, not about what picks you have, which are better. Because, as we always say, when there's a meta composition in Arbol, you know, why don't the other teams just run the counter comp? Well, because there's a reason for that. It's because it's easier to get the neutral value. Even if they're a counter comp, you can still find ways to outplay the counter comp. So I think I'm very heated about the tank ones though. So that's.
I mean, the Reaper one is another case of like where like if you have jump and bubble and the Reaper is isolated. I want to make it very clear: isolated Reaper, not Reaper that actually has support. Because if they have support, it's a bit of a dumb play. But if it's an isolated Reaper that you're seeing on his own and he's not playing for a mega and he's not playing for any kind of support, and you have your bubble on Winston, you can isolate him with bubble and you can just shield dance, shoot him. And I guarantee you, every single time you will force a shift. You force a shift, at that point, the only thing you have to do is just jump back to your team. Now you force a shift. Now there's a Reaper with no shift, somewhere on an off angle on the map. GG. He ain't doing nothing for a while. And then it's like, the biggest one is like, you can also just never engage. Like, you can never engage the Reaper. That's the thing about Monkey. The Monkey has, like, the dive aspect of characters, which is you get to decide where you take the fights, right? Like that's what dive characters like Tracer and Genji and Doomfist and Monkey and Ball, like that's what they get to do. They get to decide when and where, and specifically where. Whereas like Brawl characters sometimes don't really get to decide where, they more so decide when and how. Whereas like, I mean, even to an extent there's like the dive Reinhardt sort of like off angle clearing meta kind of play, right? But to a higher degree, Monkey can just never play into the Reaper. Like your jump is not that long of a cooldown. If the Reaper like walks you, just jump away. Find value somewhere else. There's always value to be found. Doesn't have to be face tanking the Reaper. Monkey is pretty bad right now though, but that's for other reasons. That's just because Morgan and Bastion exists.
Yeah. Have you got one that you'd like to go over?
Oh, see, I have for all the roles, right? Because I'm not really a hard role main or anything like that. But I think the one I would say for supports is supports asking for peeling from the tank, or even to some extent DPS. I've heard that one a few times. But it's mostly like, Diva, why aren't you peeling the backline? Where was the defense matrix? And it's the kind of thing where I'm like, it's so difficult to explain to someone in the moment. Like in a game, I've seen so many people in games try to explain to their teammates that they shouldn't be doing this, but they will not understand it within the game, because it's one of the things where it's like, we need to take a step back. We need to take a look at this map from a bird's perspective, and I'm going to show you why peeling for the backline sometimes actually means that the backline and yourself will receive more damage than if you were to go and put out pressure yourself, right? And it's the kind of thing where is it ever wrong to peel for backline? No, obviously not. Like if there's a Tracer like triple blinking towards your Brick Anna, right? Flash the DM for frick's sake. Like we know that pulse pump is coming out. We understand that that's a thing. Like Isaiah is going for the graph. Like we understand that like you shouldn't ignore these things, right? I'm not saying that. But it's the kind of thing where like there will be a tracer, like a singular tracer, playing into a Brig Anna in ranked, and the Brig Anna is crying that the D.Va is contesting the enemy Doomfist, the enemy Sojourn, the enemy Brig, the enemy Anna, putting pressure off from a fairly good position. And the way I need you to think about it is, like, I think a lot of these supports are coming from an era of Overwatch 1 again. I think this is where a lot of the misconceptions actually stem from, is Overwatch 1. Where the off-tank would peel for backline / contest, like, off-anglers, right? A lot of the time, like, D.Va would do that. Or frontline pressure, to be fair. With Reinhardt as well, and Ryan versus Ryan, kind of meta. But the thing is that was only possible because there was a tank to put out pressure and hold space still. And then you might be like, but then we should just bring back an extra tank. It was like, no, because we buffed support so that support cooldowns are stronger, and we gave supports a passive as well. It's unironically, it's the biggest thing. If you're playing like an Anna Kiri thing, it's support's job to peel for each other and to peel for themselves. Your sleep dart is a peel tool. Your nade shouldn't be a peel tool. You should probably have better position than that and find aggressive value with it. But in worst case scenario, it is a peel tool. Suzu is a peel tool. Shouldn't be used for yourself, but you have Swift Step. It's also a peel tool. Lamp, it's a peel tool. Regenerative Burst, it's a peel tool. Pedal Platform, it's a peel tool. Life Weaver Jump, it's a peel tool. Moira Fate, it's a peel tool, right?
Okay, you don't need to go over them all, Mick.
It's a passionate topic for me, okay? So we need to understand that no, your tank shouldn't be peeling for you constantly. He is actually peeling for you way more by going and contesting a Sojourn or a Widow or an Ashe, or potentially even threatening kill on the backline. Going and making sure that their Baptiste doesn't play the game for free is going to do a whole lot more in terms of allowing you to stabilize yourself. Yes, you still have to play the game support. I know you're always very sad whenever the support role actually has to play the game. We've noticed this. You cried in Overwatch 2 whenever like you actually had to put out more damage and you had to participate in that regard. You cried whenever you lost your second tank for peeling, and now you're gonna cry that you actually need to land your sleep darts. We get it. The support role is a very sad role where playing the video game is unfortunately somehow seen as a bad thing. Take it with a pinch of salt.
Disrespect to support players in this podcast.
If you're a support player, you're boosted. I don't care. If you're a support player, you are just a rank above what you should be, game knowledge wise and game sense wise. Unless you play Sen, because Sen actually doesn't have that much bullshit, and like he's fairly skillful. But other than that, you are probably higher than you should be. Yeah, that's a misconception on supports. Is that tanks should peel for you and that you shouldn't peel for each other and yourself, which is absolutely the case in Overwatch 2. Every now and again, you might get some peel for the tank, and every now and again, there might be an opportunity for tank to make a play that way, but it's not something you should come to expect.
No, I think like the biggest change between Overwatch 1 and 2 is obviously the tank. There's one less of them, and I feel like all the misconceptions do kind of stem from that. Now, I'm trying to think of a DPS misconception that exists.
One right now. My tank should create space for me, otherwise I cannot play the game.
Yes. Oh my god, see more tank ones as well.
Because the thing about DPS in Overwatch 2 is that in Overwatch 1, yes, it was mostly your tank and off-tank creating space for you to play, because they had to create space, because there was that extra off-tank denying space to stop you from doing that.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist anymore. You need to create space. DPS, the biggest misconception on DPS is that they shouldn't create space and they shouldn't force cooldowns. They should get kills. That's not the case. You can go and get nearly no kills. Like actual kills, I'm not talking about elims. I'm talking about like solo kills and final blows. You can get no solo kills and no final blows. And this even happens like at the very highest level. Go watch the most recent Spylo video on Kevster playing Tracer, where he points out that Kevster has actually not killed anything the whole of Esperanza. He has not killed anything, but he's gotten so much value by just constantly being greedy in their backline and just constantly living in their backline, playing around, tip-tap-toeing in their backline on Tracer. That is the concept of both off-anglers and flankers, where like a lot of lower ranked DPS don't understand that you should create space. Creating space and applying pressure is more important than getting kills.
Yeah, that as soon as you said it, I was like, of course, yeah, that will make sense. I'd argue that every role kind of needs to contribute to that to some extent. Maybe not supports creating space, but I mean, in some cases, yeah.
Kiriko,
Because
off angle. Kiriko,
yeah,
take an aggressive off angle where you can apply kunai shots into the enemy backline. Look for a TP back to one of your DPS on for example, like a high count, like your Ashe or like your Soldier or your Sojourn or Widow or whatever it might be, right? Even your Tracer sometimes.
yeah.
Go TP out them, yeah. Break hold space. Break hold space
Yeah.
very she doesn't contest space very well, but she holds it very well. She peels
Yeah.
peels to support the peels, right? Peels space very well. And enables as well. She enables characters like Genji, Tracer, Echo, Sombra. Like she enables these characters very, very, very well, because it's very easy to get these sort of like low HP in and out character, a burst heal with armor pack, 120 healing, bada bing, bada boom, we're ready to go again. Doesn't have to play around a mini.
Yeah. What I was gonna say is she can, like you said, she can control an angle. You know, stop a soldier from being able to take a little flank route, which means that the tank can push up a little bit more freely, knowing that the backline is uncontested, which means that they're going to get full resources pumped into them, so then they can go try and find an off angle onto the enemy's backline. So I guess that is a bit of a misconception for supports and DPS, which is you guys can put out massive amounts of pressure in order to carry a team fight for your team by dealing damage, controlling an angle, holding an angle, like you said for Kiri, taking an off angle.
Clearing up what pressure is might be a good idea. So pressure is damage or presence, essentially, that threatens to take away HP / your life, right? So, for example, if Widowmaker, if a really, really good Widowmaker is holding a sideline, now that sideline you probably don't want to play in for too long, as Anna, as Baptiste, as Soldier, as Tracer even, because this really, really good Widow is threatening kills on you. Mostly, that's what the Widow does. She threatens kills, right, on that sideline. So that creates space. She creates space by denying people to play there. Now, other characters will do it through a different kind of pressure, like Soldier, for example. Like, so I've been playing a lot of Soldier, and my aim is not very good, which means that I don't kill people. But what I do is I try to find an off angle, and I pressure the Ana, because if I keep shooting the Ana from an angle, I'm forcing the Ana to take cover. And if she's forced to play in cover, well, then she might not have a line of sight onto her tank. So in that way, I've pressured out the Ana, because if I remove half of her HP, well, she's going to be like, well, I'm at half HP now, so if I peek again, I'm probably dead. Now, another thing it does on a character like Soldier is you can bait out, by pressuring her and dueling her, you can bait out Sleep Dart, and you can force bad Anas with bad position to nade themselves. It's not going to happen with good Anas. They know how to not do that. But it's the general concept of like, I might have to try to nade myself here. which is something you can do like with a Tracer a lot. Same with Susu. It's like you can go start shooting a Kiriko. Kiriko TPs. We'll find her again. Start shooting her. Now she doesn't have TP. Susu comes out. You force Susu because she would rather live than die, knowing that she can use Susu. Now you force cooldown. So that's what pressure is.
Yeah.
It is to go and apply damage in such a way that the enemy doesn't get to play the game how they want to do.
No.
It's this
Creating
short-
pressure. Yeah, go on. Finish.
Oh, so that was just the short version of what pressure is. I think that explains it pretty well for the people that might have been thinking, like, what is pressure really?
Pressure, and I mean, I feel like you kind of briefly mentioned it as well. Attention is also pressure. If you can just divert the attention of someone, like if you're a DPS and you've forced the tank to come move away to focus on you, and then you get out alive without really losing any resources. If you've played a greedy angle, got loads of attention from the back line, and then forced the tank to come give you attention, or just force the tank to come dive on you, and you still get out alive and then can go reset and go take another angle, that is pressure. Attention is a resource, and pressure is just depleting resources. So if you're drawing loads of attention onto yourself, then that's pressure. If you're forcing out cooldowns, or even just threatening cooldowns, like Mick said, where you either force the Ana to say, I'm going to have to nade myself here if I want to be able to peek and heal my tank, or I'm going to have to use my sleep dart. These are all things that are major value. So I feel that is definitely underappreciated, because I do it a lot as well, where I think I'm not getting any value, because even though I forced the soldier to stop taking the off angle, I didn't get the kill. But just getting attention, or forcing somebody to change position, or forcing some cooldowns, that is insane value. And it might not seem like forcing one nade and a Suzu in a fight is much, but then that's actually game-winning value. That is the difference between you winning the fight and you losing the fight. So
absolutely. And also another thing is with a Tracer, for example, like Tracer is like the king or queen of of forcing people to look at her, and like both forcing cooldowns but also grabbing attention, right? So just gonna stick with the Tracer example for now, right? If you manage to peek a Baptiste and shoot the Baptiste from like a corner angle, sort of behind him in the back line, you can relatively safely apply shots onto him and use your blinks to maneuver around cover, to the point where he has to respect you but can't really do too much about you. In this situation, not only is it taking away from his ability to, because if he ignores you, you just go and kill him. If he doesn't ignore you, well, now the healing all of a sudden isn't going into that Morga on the front line. The damage isn't going into your own Morga, right? Like, he's not able to actually free fire anymore, because he's forced to split his attention between you and whatever he actually wants to do. He needs to respect you, right? So that way it can also relieve your team of pressure. So not only are you creating pressure, but you're also relieving your team of pressure. So it's a lot of value that doesn't translate very well, especially in the lower elos. People don't realize that is massive value.
yeah,
I am willing to bet that you can climb quite far by forcing resources, dragging attention towards you, living. Here's the big one: living. You have to live. If you die, it's all for nothing. You have to live, right? You have to live through all of this, which is why Tracer is such a good character for it. I'm willing to bet you can climb quite high without even having the mechanical skill to actually kill stuff.
we usually say that, like, the cutoff is about masters, don't we? Like, you can get to about masters without having amazing mechanics, or without having the above average mechanics.
I think it differs a lot from role to role and from hero to hero, right? Like, obviously you're not climbing to like probably even diamond on Widow without actually getting some picks in there, right? There's a character where you probably probably need to get some picks there, right? But certain characters like Tracer's, like you can climb really far without actually being very good at dueling things or getting kills. Like you don't have to be mechanically good. If your positioning and movement is good and your decision making is good, you can get really far on Tracer, a lot further than you'd think. Especially because Tracer is such a mechanically high skill ceiling character. Like you can get so much more out of her, right? Even at the highest end. But I'm just saying, like for the average sort of like gold plat Tracer Andy thinking I can't play Tracer because I don't have the aim to kill stuff. Like I don't go in on one clip Zenyatta on repeat.
Yeah.
So Zenyatta is a really easy one clip, and you should be ashamed of yourself if you can't. I'm joking.
I can't. Don't worry, guys. I can't.
No, Rowan can. I can. Anyway, but
Why is he turning to Michael Jackson?
Anyway,
No, stop it. Stop it.
It's Michael Jackson. I'm about to moonwalk. Right. Okay.
Have we got time for one more?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we do.
This one is actually quite a big one, and again, even at Masters, I hear it all the time, and I want to correct people every time I hear it, which is, it's okay, I traded.
Oh,
Going
yeah.
Going in and getting a kill and then dying straight after is not acceptable value. Like Mick said, it's all for nothing if you go in, get value, and then die. Even if that value was killing another person on their team, you should think to yourself that I have just made a big mistake. Because, you know, maybe you've died because you've went in too hard trying to chase the kill and now you've died. Or maybe you've died, you know, not even chasing the kill too hard, just in general chasing too hard to force cooldowns or whatever. But if you're dying and trading with somebody else, then that's not value. That is, you know, it's negligible. You've made a bad decision, and you shouldn't be okay with it. You know, maybe if you go in there with a nano blade and kill 3, then I think we can probably forgive you for that one. That one is a decent trade, but
that's not a trade though. That's just an nano blade. That's just what it is. That's just what blading is, man. Okay, yeah. At current game, it is just I killed 3, but also I'm not getting out. Or like I am every CC in the game is on me. But yeah, it's you're absolutely right in terms of like the trading thing. And the thing I want people to think about as to why trading is not okay is that you could have always, if you consider yourself, and you should consider yourself, a person on your team that gets value, right? So we have some equation that's called value and time, and your graph should look upwards trending on that, right? Like you get value over time. If you're not getting value over time, the question is entirely different. We need to start thinking about how the fuck do we get value. We're not getting value. So how do we get value? This should be the question there. Now, if we do consider ourselves someone who gets value over time, then why would we remove ourselves from the game? Why would we? Any day I would rather have you apply pressure, force cooldowns, threaten kills, create space, apply pressure, right, over time, then go in and trade DPS for DPS, or support for support, or even DPS for support, right? I would rather have you do that, because that is going to give you a higher likelihood of winning the fight. Whereas if you trade, it becomes like kind of a 50-50, where like maybe your team wins, maybe the enemy team wins. It's a bit of a coin flip now, because you no longer have agency over whether or not you're going to make it a one fight. And you should carry team fights. If you're not carrying team fights in ranked, if you're like, why do I have to carry team fights? It's like, you have to. If you want to win, you have to carry team fights.
That was going to be the next thing that I said, is the mindset, and I always see this as well. You know, people talking about how much of a team game Overwatch is. In theory, Overwatch is a team game. In theory. In scrims, and in the Overwatch League, and in contenders, and in open division, and in teams, depending on elo, I'd probably say you got to get to about 3k before teams start really being teams, cohesively. Maybe a little bit higher actually. It is a team game there, but in comp it's not a team game. It's a solo game unless you're queuing with others. If you're solo queuing, it's a solo game where you've got 4 people who you don't know and you can't trust, and you have to go carry them and yourself to every single win. You have to think of yourself as the carry player every time. You always have to look at yourself. If you're on support, if you're on DPS, if you're on tank, you could be playing Mercy and you've got to think of yourself as, I'm going to carry this game. And if I don't win, it's not my team's fault. It's my fault, because I'm the one who's responsible for winning the game for them, not themselves, me. So that's how you've got to approach it. And if you think of it, if you think of yourself as, let's just say you're playing Tracer, you think of yourself as Striker, and the rest of the team doesn't want Striker dead. The rest of the team wants Striker to be alive so Striker can carry. So you got to value your life as much as a bunch of like golds would value your life being Striker and popping off and carrying. They're relying on you. You're relying on you to change your rank and to change where you are and to win the game and see that victory screen at the end and watch the funny pixels change and go up, hopefully, after the 5 wins. So you have to think of yourself as the carry every single time you play the game. So that's just another reason as to why trading is not something that you should be happy with or comfortable with. You need to be thinking of your life as much more valuable. And to quote a great man known as Mick and Motor, living is undervalued in Overwatch, or underappreciated in Overwatch, should I say.
That's true. It's true. It's one of the first things I started my coaching with Motor saying, and a bunch of his old teammates as well, is living is the singular most underrated thing in Overwatch, especially in the lower ranks. People throw their lives away constantly. Living, like, people will always be like, what's a good elims per 10 stat? I'm like, I'm gonna be real with you. I don't care about your elims per 10, as long as your fucking, like, deaths per 10 is not 10. Don't die 10 times a minute. Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. We've all had that guy. We've all had a game with that guy who somehow managed to spawn, walk, die. Spawn, walk, die. Spawn, walk. At what point do you just play further back and get less value but live, right? That is better. That even doing nothing but living is also better, because when you're alive, you actually generate some amount of ult charge per second.
Yeah.
And when you're alive, you might take a little bit of damage, but your supports can heal it, and they can get ultimate charge. Like, support ultimates are quite strong. So even doing nothing and being alive is better than to die 10 times a minute. It's better. It is better.
You said it's better to live and get less value. Living in itself is value. So I just want to be a little bit nitpicky on you there, because I've got the chance to do it now, so I might as well, while everybody can see it as well.
Yeah.
It's the immediate feeling of value, isn't it? It's like, I'm playing Genji, so I'm going to dash straight onto their Ana and I'm going to go try and kill her. And again, maybe you do get the trade and you kill the Ana. It's like, wow, that was worth it. But then you've also went and died, whereas you could play Genji a little bit slower and you could poke the Ana and then force out the nade immediately, and then you could go in and use cover to force the sleep and then get the kill. Like, sometimes it will be a slow burn. Sometimes you have to trade off getting, you're not going to get immediate value. You're not going to get value as soon as the fight starts. But you might get value, 30 seconds after the teams start clashing with each other, once the poke trade starts happening. And then if you live, well, you're perfectly set up to also then go get value in the follow-up fight, and then the follow-up fight, and then the follow-up fight. And before you know it, you're not dying more than 10 times per 10, and you're probably getting more elims as well, because you're there till the conclusion of every single fight. So it is underrated to live in Overwatch, and obviously you want to rush getting value because you feel like the longer the fight goes on, the more unsure you might feel. But that's certainly not the case. So don't rush getting value so you can trade, because it isn't a trade. Again, you're trading a gold anna for striker or flatter or who are you, or whoever is the best at the hero that you're playing. You got to think of yourself as them. That's not a good trade, is it? You just lost the best tracer in the world to a gold anna. We don't want that.
The positive mental coaching from Motor here.
Always.
I'd argue you don't have to think of yourself as Kevstar or anything like that, but that's fine. I mean, you can do that. I mean, that is a strategy. You could also just value your life a little bit more. That is a-okay. You don't actually have to do exactly what Motor is telling you here.
No, I mean, to be fair, I'm sitting there thinking I'm KSA. Yes.
Not with your recent Sigma gameplay, but I'm sorry, Motor has caught a stray here. He's caught a stray. Right.
My window's like 62% on Sigma right now, so you can chill your beans.
It's okay, but you also dropped to mid diamond. So,
anyway, I'm still Masters. I never dropped that Masters, thank you.
Did you not drop out? Did you not drop to Diamond 3? I think you did a while ago, but that's fine.
I dropped to Diamond 1, not this season. That's the lowest I've been this season. Pretty sure.
Okay.
I might have even just been in.
Not this
Masters
season. Not this season.
Okay.
Motor has caught more stray than I thought, but that leads us elegantly to the next topic, though.
Yeah.
Shop of the week. We need to talk about two skins. There's not a whole lot to go over this time, but there's two skins to talk about.
May I preface this by saying I'm on my phone, so for the sake of not scuffing this too bad, I can't look at the skins. So I looked at the skins briefly before we started recording. So at this point in time, and let me give my opinions quickly while it's still fresh in my mind.
I can probably go and get you the
Yeah.
I can probably go and give you the Overwatch view of the skins real quick if you wanna check them on our Discord.
Again, it'll freeze the camera. I know what the Hanzo one looks like.
Right.
Yeah, I know what the Hanzo one looks like off by heart there.
Yeah.
The Hanzo one is actually a reskin. Of a skin that we already had. Yeah, he's like a reddy orange. Then this time he's like pinky purple. It's a reskin. I don't even know what the theme is, to be honest. Maybe actually you should say. Yeah, I'll let you start. I'll let you start actually.
So we have the Great Tengu Hanzo skin, which is I said looks fairly much like a recolor here. We don't have a sort of like a whole lot. So what I'll say is the detailing is good. The theme is a bit questionable. I don't really understand the theme. And it's a recolor, so for me it's immediately like a pretty like whatever skin. Like maybe like a 5 or 6. Like I might.
Is it legendary?
It's a legendary, yes. But
in your opinion, I mean.
Oh, yeah, it has enough like quality like things on it that it could be legendary for sure. It does have a theme, even though I don't really understand the theme. I don't know what a reference it is for. Like if Tengu is some sort of like.
It's not anime.
No, it's not. I don't think so.
It's like it feels it's like very traditional like Japanese kind of
mascot,
Japanese?
like folklore character kind of thing, right?
Yeah, there we go.
Almost like an Oni, right?
Kind of thing. Yes, yeah. There you go.
I don't. The meaning of this might go past me, to be fair, but I think in terms of like the skin, yes, it is legendary. It has the model details I'm looking for. It has a theme, even though I'm not really understanding it. And then also it has it's a recolor, so we're gonna have to subtract some points there, but I think it's still a legendary. So I think it's a 5 out of 10 kind of legendary. It's a mid legendary in terms of of what I think. I'm not a huge fan of it.
I agree. 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10 is. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really enjoy the first one. Again, I always just go off. What do I think the skin looks like? I think the skin kinda looks poo. I'm probably giving it like a 4 or 5 out of 10. You always kind of manage to talk me into maybe more sensible answers. I don't like it because you always make very valid points. But yeah, five seems reasonable. Sorry, I dragged that out a little bit too much.
So good. Yeah, so 5 out of 10 I think is what I'm going to say. And then we have the Storm Rider Ash. So Ash Stormskin. What do you think of it?
I think I don't remember what it looks like, so I might have to leave this one up to you.
Okay. I'll give my 2 cents real quick. I like the theme. Sort of like some stormy Japanese waves on Bob and on Ash here. Quite a lot of good detailing, different detailing. Some circular shapes, some gemstone shoulder pads. More sort of like medieval, kind of like Japanese, Chinese medieval kind of era. I like it a lot. Yeah, I think it's fairly good. It's unique. Definitely deserving of legendary. I think I might go like with a 9 on this one. Like a 9 one. I really like the skin.
I don't really remember what it looks like. Don't think it was a 9. I feel like it was probably like a 7 or an 8 angle. From again, I do not have the image.
I'm thinking 8 or 9. I'm thinking 8 or 9. But
I'm getting the image up. I'm going to go frozen for a second. I hope it's a flattering angle.
It's a bit pixelated, but honestly, it's not the worst angle I've ever seen you from.
Horrible.
You're very charming, trust.
That is not charming. I don't know what you're talking about. Alright, gonna change my opinion.
The wrestler. Okay,
She's got her toes out, so it's a 10.
Wait, the toes are out, so it's a what?
It's a 10.
It's a 10 because the toes are out.
Yeah.
Bob toes.
Why do you think I'm a Sigma main? Why do you think I'm a Sigma main?
Yeah. So you're saying 10 now? Unironically?
No, very much ironically. And ironically, probably a 7.
Okay, I think my personal bias drags it up to like a 9 here. I quite like it. I think it's very thematically pleasing. I am a sucker for medieval stuff, so...
And I feel as if the colour kind of just like, I look at it and I just think this is just not like, it's not special. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just see it and I'm just like, this is just not...
This sort of like, just purple, like mundane back tone is a bit...
Yeah.
Maybe, But... I think it's a 9. I quite like it.
Okay.
Yep. I think that's that segment. I don't think there's anything else to talk about there.
Yeah.
Really.
That was not an incredible week of skins, to be honest. Okay. Again.
Also, just a little fun bit. Like, doesn't mean anything. Just talk about skins. Why not?
I can't exactly tab out the poll. So, Motors hardest Cobra of the week. You heard me right. Motors hardest Cobra of the week is my segment now. Okay. It's going to be presented by Mick. So, Mick, if you'd do me the honours of reading it out, please, and thank you.
I will read out the segment. Tracer should have 175 HP. How can she have the same HP as Baby Diva? Especially now that you just randomly get shot by any champ, filthy league player, will make her survival better.
Okay, so we have already kind of discussed how strong we think Tracer is right now. I think everybody can agree Tracer is in a very good spot right now. She's really survivable. I don't think there's anything wrong with how survivable she is, really. I think it fits her playstyle really well, and it fits her how do you always phrase it? Like the hero fantasy. It fits her hero fantasy really well.
A game loop, the flow of the character.
Yes.
The character philosophy and fantasy is very well portrayed in how you play her. So she's going to be a character that will always be having a good hero identity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's in a good place in that situation. Probably dealing a little bit too much damage. Maybe tone back the damage numbers is maybe what's putting her is where I'd look to change her. But she does not need to have more HP.
But changing her in terms of damage, like I'm assuming you're considering a nerf. They are asking for a buff of 25 HP on Tracer.
No, yeah, this is what I mean. I mean, take her damage down a little bit.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like this Cooper is asking for a buff. You're saying a nerf, but we're not even talking nerfs here. We're talking buffs.
I'm getting there, brother.
You're getting there. You're getting there.
She's in a strong spot, is my point that I'm trying to make right now. She's in a strong spot. She does not need to be buffed. She can zip around the map. She has completely silent footsteps, and she can not completely silent. She can do a crouch spam that makes her completely silent and be able to move extremely quickly. I don't think any Tracer right now is suffering from random damage, because any good Tracer is suffering from random damage because they're not standing in random places where anybody can see them. They're standing in isolated places against isolated supports or DPS that they can effectively duel. Not to mention the fact that her hitbox is already fairly small. So for the size that she is, giving her an additional 25 HP, so she has the same HP as a Widowmaker, almost the same as a Kiriko or an Ana, would just be unbelievably wild. I think she's in a strong place right now, and to suggest that she needs extra HP is crazy. And what makes this suggestion even worse is I think it came out a little bit before the rumors of the hero, of like the hero passive of everybody gets healing. Well, it's not rumors, it's confirmation. It's confirmed.
Which obviously also will help Tracer quite a lot, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point, yeah.
Yeah.
The survivability is about to go up massively depending on how strong that passive is. You know, so do I think we need to make Tracer any more survivable in almost any regard? No, I do not. I think very often you can find good Tracers having little to no deaths while still having extremely high uptime and really good value in a lot of lobbies. If they know what they're doing, then that's how it's going to be. So
yeah,
it's
not to mention that like some of the things that has made Tracer's life a bit more difficult has been sort of kind of zoned out of favor, where like we did have a Sigma meta, like a Bastion meta. We did have like Kiriko at one point, and even Ilari, who are characters that are great at contesting Tracer. Wouldn't say necessarily, killing them, but definitely contesting them. I think one of the big misunderstandings of like the 150 HP thing is like people not using cover and not using blinks to engage. If you use all of your blinks aren't necessarily your way to engage. It's your way to change angle and to change cover, right? That's what it is. If you're blink starving yourself trying to fight an Ana, you get your recall forced. Now you go in without recall. Yeah, you're a very fragile character, but you have to remember, playing around health packs that can, heal up whatever mistakes that you may have been doing. Like taking a lot of damage on Tracer is usually due to mistakes, right? Playing around your blinks as a survival tool and as a repositioning tool rather than a movement thing. Like, so often I see people moving towards the fight with their blinks, and then they end up in the fight in the open with no cover, with no blinks, and I'm like, well, that's why you're dying. You need to be way more conservative with these blinks. They're your way of living on this character, right? Recall as well is like, we're saying she has 150 HP, but it's like she also has a recall that kind of can just like recall HP, and you can get out of the fight whenever you want. So effectively, we do have a bit more than 150 HP, and also we have the opportunity to disengage from fights completely whenever we want if played correctly. If you think Tracer is too squishy, you need to get a coach.
Reassess.
You need to get a coach. You need to get a replay, and you need to work on your movement. And your movement is gonna be the big one here. Like, your resource management and your movement is probably terrible.
Sorry, I was just thinking about this. The effective HP on Tracer is, on a technicality, 299 as well, because you could literally go down to 1 HP, recall back up to full.
Yeah, it's a technicality. Like, recall gets forced when you're out of position and you've like lost.
Yeah,
like 70 HP, 75, whatever it is.
On a very slight technicality. I was just thinking, I was like, that's quite interesting actually. Like, you have got an effective HP of 299 on Tracer. But yeah,
in reality, your effective HP is a lot lower than that. But yes, theoretically, if we could always play to the max, which is, there's no way you haven't recalled before you're 1 HP. That is stupid beyond all belief, because like from 70 HP and below, you're one shot by most things in the game. So it's like, I don't know about that. But yeah.
You're braver than me if you can do that. I take one little like nick on Tracer and I'm like, yeah, I'm recalling now. This is me done.
That's also a mistake. That's wasting recalls, but
brother,
it is a mistake. I've seen you play Tracer. You get your recall forced way too much, but that's a different topic. I get it forced. I get it forced too much too. I'm a bad Tracer player. I suck at Tracer, but I understand that I am not playing cover angles correctly with my blinks, and I'm not playing around the health packs correctly, and I'm overstaying my welcome in certain duels, and I end up getting my recall forced, and I end up dying stupidly.
Yeah.
I understand that I do that, but I do that.
Okay, I think we're maybe beating a dead horse now.
Yeah. I think this may be what we kind of have for this week.
Yeah.
I don't have too much else, unless you have something on the fall here.
No, I got nothing. I have got absolutely nothing. So, with that being said, thank you to everybody who's watched up to this point. Me and Mick, as always, really appreciate it. And thank you for listening to what myself, who I like to consider an intellectual, and this buffoon who I'm carrying to greatness, Mick and B. Thank you for tuning into our podcast and enjoying it with us. So,
yeah.
I guess we'll see you next week.
Remember, what is it your chat always says? Mick sucks.
Yeah. Hashtag Mick sucks in the comments.
In the comments.
Please.
All right. You all have a good one. I'll catch you in the next one.